Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in. Thrilled to be with you. Lots of stuff to talk about. Where do we start? CBS News is talking about former President Trump and burner phones. NBC News, I think this was last night, was talking about Biden's regime change mistakes and other things. Let's go, NBC first, and then we'll get to CBS. This is what it sounds like when one of the television stations that I guess you would accuse of being slightly less biased than others, that would be the main NBC, is talking about just how big of a uninflicted wound or self-inflicted wound this is on the current president.
President Biden tried to quiet a controversy of his own making, one that shook allies and sent his own administration into 48 hours of cleanup. But today, the president is defiant.
Do you believe what you said, that Putin can't remain in power?
I'm not walking anything back. The fact of the matter is I was expressing the moral outrage.
I'm laughing because he is walking stuff back as he's saying I'm not walking back. I'm not walking anything back. I'm just also changing everything I said to be other stuff.
Felt toward the way Putin is dealing in the actions of this man.
Yeah.
Just brutality.
And we all agree. We are morally outraged with you, Mr. President. We don't understand why you're not walking back, but then fully walking back the regime change demand that you made. Let's get a little more NBC.
Saturday in Poland, defending democracy and Ukraine, the president went off script and off message.
For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power.
That reverberated among friends and foes. The official U.S. government position does not seek regime change of Putin's government.
I wasn't then, nor am I now, articulating a policy change. I was expressing the moral outrage that I feel.
Hey, you're not walking anything back. That's not what I was doing. He cannot remain in power. It was not me asking him to not remain in power. That's not what that is. Why are you guys getting all confused? I love these moments. I really do. And I continue to talk about them, I guess. Here on this platform, filling in for Chad, pretty much everywhere I am, at the Starbucks while getting my coffee for the day. I'm a little relentless in that way because it's just ridiculous. Now I'm going to shift to something else, and hopefully I'm going to prove that I'm willing to go after both sides when it's necessary. And I don't fully understand this next story. I'm going to be honest with you. I think a lot more information needs to come out for us to truly understand it, because right now the narrative that the former president could have potentially been using burner phones is a guess. That's an assumption because there's some missing data, and I do wonder if maybe somebody put it in a wrong folder or somewhere else, or I don't know what could have happened. But it is unique, and I will play the CBS audio for this reason. CBS News talking about former President Trump. It's a pretty significant time slot for us to be missing any of the data as to what the president was doing. His diary is missing a pretty significant, the former president, amount of time there, and also phone calls that don't seem to be reflected on any kind of actual record. So it's intriguing right now. Maybe the most intriguing thing that could have been put out about this, I have thought pretty much from jump, that the committee that's investigating January 6th now, after already doing an impeachment trial, is just doing it for political reasons. Putting this sort of information out, I assume, is to drum up hatred for a side of the aisle and hatred for the former president in order to help benefit Democrats during the midterm elections. A lot of this smells of political maneuvering, and yet it's significant enough to wonder where did those records go? I don't have an answer to it now. Former President Trump did respond to this, though, so I'll play that in the audio as well.
President Trump spoke repeatedly on the phone with allies and supporters, some of whom urged him to put an end to the violence. But none of those calls are reflected in the 11 pages of those White House records for January 6th. Given to the House Select Committee. There is a massive 7-hour and 37-minute gap in calls from 11:17 a.m. to 6:54 p.m., which includes the most violent period of the attack. The committee is now investigating whether the president and top aides used so-called burner or disposable phones to avoid scrutiny of their calls during that time.
Last night, Trump said in his statement, quote, "I have no idea what a burner phone is. To the best of my knowledge, I have never even heard the term," end quote. A Trump spokesperson said that Trump had nothing to do with the records and assumed any and all of his phone calls were recorded and preserved.
Yeah, what's interesting about all of this is, depending on what you think of the former president, right, you've made up your mind. Right now, if you hear that sound, if you hear that report on a major television station, and you decide that Trump definitely was guilty going in, what you just heard is an admission of guilt, even though that's absolutely not what I just played. What I played is confusion. What I played is curiosity. What I played is a guess as to what actually went on, why there are text messages and other things that are being talked about that seem to be between former President Trump and other politicians, and why those aren't in any records. But to assume that it's like burner phones and stuff, to throw the full 007 version of life into this situation is a jump. And if there is no proof of it at any point, if nothing ever comes of this confusion, and Bob Woodward was even involved in breaking some of this news the other day and talked about it in the same interview, in this same piece of coverage, Bob Woodward said that it's important to find out what was going on in those hours, where those records, where any of that is. And I know Woodward's an interesting guy, but I agree with him. It is important to find that out. Until we do that, we can't decide what happened. We cannot go the way of, he was definitely doing bad stuff, though, because that's not how this works. That's not how it needs to work. And I'm not saying that just because it's a guy on a certain side of I don't care about that part of it. I'm going to be honest. I don't know if you'll believe me, and I guess I don't care about that either. But it does matter that you cannot just assume something was definitely foul play until you know for sure it was foul play. All right, let's move on. Some other stuff out there. Ted Cruz popped up on Sean Hannity last night. Ted Cruz had a conversation about a lot of different things, but about the handling of Russia. Ted Cruz said this of President Biden.
We ought to be providing the weapons for the Ukrainians to defend themselves. We ought to be providing the Polish MiGs. We ought to be providing S-300s and Javelins and Stingers. And the Biden administration is slow walking all of that. And then number two, we ought to be going after Putin's revenue. And that means oil and gas. No. That means American energy production. And yes. Biden is so much in hock to the Green New Deal radicals that he's unwilling to step up American energy production. You know, I got to say, Sean, watching the cascade of blunders from Biden, that's 5 gaffes in 48 hours. I don't recall ever seeing an American president mess things up so badly.
That's a hot take, but it's pretty close. It's accurate, I think. That is a lot of gaffes in a very short period of time. To go back to the energy thing just quickly, and this is something that I've found out recently, having this conversation, even with some people that call themselves experts in some of these fields, and I guess I shouldn't doubt that. But some people don't know that we can export things like natural gas to places like Europe. They think we can't. They're like, you got to liquefy that. We did. You got to export it on ships. We do. You got to get a lot of it out there. You can't just get a little bit. We send more as of last year, 2021, via a liquid natural gas that gets sent on ships to places that are not connected to us via pipeline than we do via pipeline to Mexico, Canada, or anybody. Those are all interesting things. People don't talk about it enough. Of course, we can export oil as well. The United States could potentially decide to ramp up production of those necessary commodities, export them directly to Europe with the intention of preventing Russia from continuing to have a monopoly on said things in those countries, because it's creating this problem. As Ted Cruz just pointed out, we need to go after Russia's main revenue source. Most people call Russia a gas station, a giant gas station. So we need to go after the gas. In order to do that, and I'm not even saying that, you know what, I'm going to go a little step further here. I'm not even saying that we shouldn't eventually sometime down the road transition to greener energy. I don't care about that part of the process, to be honest. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I just think it's illogical to force it when it's not going to work. When bad things are going to happen now, it's like anything else, honestly. If you told me, hey, I think bad things are coming, it could be here in a few years, it could be here in a few more than that, or it might not come, but most likely it's coming. In order to prevent it, how about we have terrible things now? I would go with the no on that. I would say let's get the now situated first, and then let's try to fix the future. Actually, another way I've equated it, it would be like if your house was on fire, you were standing outside looking at it as the fire department rolled up. They looked at it too. They're like, you know what, man? We're thinking about putting out the fire, but you got these guys here that want to remodel your basement. We're going to let them go in first. Remodel the basement. Then we'll put the fire out. That doesn't make any sense, people. We got to fight the first problem as it arises, and Russia has demonstrated just how significant of a problem they will be until everyone in their general area, all the countries we need to stand with us to fight against Russian aggression, are all independent of their energy sources. We need not just us. It can't just be us. We have to talk to our allies. We have to make sure that all those conversations go a direction we want it to go. And then when everybody's on board with the same plan, then we all get Teslas. I don't know, maybe you make Oprah president. I'm kidding. I'm not sure I want to see that. And then she just hands out Teslas to everybody. If that can happen, and I'm sure we would never pay a whole bunch of taxes to cover it. Oh, by the way, I just want to touch on this real quick, and then we probably can take a break and get to other things. Biden put out his budget proposal. Biden continues to talk about how he's going to tax the billionaires. I think it's something like 70 or 80 people in our entire country that the plan is most targeting. And here's the thing I think you always hear about that. And there's ways they're trying to go after them now that go after some of the money that can be hidden from, say, your typical tax year, the way in which a lot of people, a lot of those very, very wealthy individuals in our society avoid most of their income taxes. They're trying to find ways to stop that and to tax substantially that money that's been hidden in one way or another. And hidden might not even be the right word, but I don't want to get into it any more than that. I am not a financial expert. I want to say this. One of two things will happen if that day inevitably comes where Democrats push across a piece of legislation that 100% is after creating a tax boon for the government, for whoever needs it, I guess, from these uber rich in our society. They will leave. You hear that all the time. They'll just leave. They'll be like, yeah, that's too much. That's too much of my money that you want, so I'm going to go now. They'll do that, or they'll find a way around it because they can employ a lot of people who can figure out great ways to get around these sort of things. And the biggest problem, by the way, with any of this sort of, I think, to me, illogical, pie in the sky, we're going to do it, it's totally going to work, taxing the billionaires to make all this money that we're then spending on whatever I guess Democrats are spending it on, or where they're putting the money in whose pockets. The other thing is that they spend the money first. Like anybody who's ever had a credit card, or maybe the first time you got one, maybe when you were 18 years old, you got that first credit card and you thought to yourself, I don't have to have money to spend this money, but I'm going to have to get the money later. This is great. You learn that lesson poorly. So inevitably, what I think will happen is you throw all these budgets out there, you spend all this money up front, you then try to tax these uber wealthy people, tremendous sums of money. They prevent it one way or another. Then who pays the bill? It's always us. It's always the people who are not in the Jeff Bezos bracket, and I do not want to pay that bill. That's the reason you fight it. I hope I made that as simple as possible. I'm sure I made it way too simple for some, and they have problems with me even talking about it. I will worry about that later. A quick break, a lot more. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
Being antisocial sucks. Hang with Chad's friends on Facebook, The Chad Benson Show. And if you just need some alone time, head on over to Twitter at Chad Benson Show. Either way, we can't wait to meet the real you.
This is The Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Thrilled to be with you. Lots of stuff to talk about. Will Smith did issue an apology the other day. I didn't get to it yesterday, but I guess we can talk about it just quickly today. He apologized to Chris Rock. He said, Chris, I'm sorry, among other things, and how it's not like the man he wants to be. It's the kind of violence is never the answer stuff. It is interesting. I'm not obviously reading it verbatim because I don't believe it. The part that's a problem for me to understand is if you thought all this, you had about 40 minutes from when you got up and slapped the guy in the face. You had a lot of conversations with other people, other celebrities like Denzel Washington. You had all that time to evaluate what you had done. And then by the time you got up to accept your award, the person you did not apologize to was Chris Rock. You did not say sorry. What you did, what a lot of famous people do, is you went home and you watched. You tried to assess the fallout of the decisions you made. This is my assumption on Will Smith. And then when it got to a point where people were like, yeah, you should issue a better apology, you did the crappy version. the version where we can't even really tell if you're authentic at all because we don't get to look you in the eyes. You just text out a little thing and put it up as a photo on your social media page. And that annoys me. That annoys me maybe more than anything else in this situation. But again, I wasn't slapped in the face. Chris Rock was. So he's allowed to be more upset about that part than I am. But the fact that now we accept apology via this like written social media letter, when did that happen? When were we okay? Everybody in society was like, all right, yeah, you apologized. Like, can we do that now all the time when we do anything wrong to anybody in our life? Like the next time I do something wrong and the wife gets mad at me, can I write out an apology on my phone and just like text it to her? I'm sorry. I just started to laugh, obviously, as you can tell, at the idea of what would happen if I did that. If I sent my wife is from Mexico, she's Latina, she would not be happy. My wife, she sometimes makes some of the stereotypes there very true. Lovely, wonderful person. Love her dearly. I make her mad. Another side comes out every so often. If I texted her my apology, that side would be out in full force. So I don't get any of this. I don't believe any of this still. I did think it was interesting, and maybe we'll save the audio for a little bit later on in the show. But Tucker Carlson certainly was amused last night by this story and had a few things to say, including, I think, one, and maybe a lot of people have been saying it now, just hint at the idea that maybe it is all still staged. Maybe this is an opportunity or an attempt to get more eyeballs paying attention to something that a lot of eyeballs were not paying attention to, that being the Oscars. It didn't work this year, obviously, because a lot of people didn't know it was coming. It'll be interesting to see if ratings go up significantly next year. You got to nominate Will for something, and you got to ask Chris Rock to host it, I guess, or figure out another two people in Hollywood that might slap each other, and then you just go that way. I would love it if every single pairing of award presenter and award winner is potential beef involved. All right, more coming up in a bit. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Chad is back tomorrow. Lots and lots of stuff to talk about. I was entertained by this. Tucker Carlson had a bit. I think this was maybe toward the tail end of the show. I don't remember exactly. Let's be honest. But Tucker Carlson had a bit in which he was talking about a set of passengers on a flight that included a CNN anchor and the tweet that the CNN anchor sends out. And I love the entertainment value that Tucker himself seems to get out of this moment. And then the invite to have people on the show. Here we go.
Life isn't easy for CNN anchors. They feel things so deeply, and that's why they typically commute from the apartment to Whole Foods to work. But sometimes they get out of that routine and go into the wider world. That happened to CNN's Chris Lizza over the weekend. And here's what happened next. Quote, couple in front of me on the flight refused to wear masks. They were tuned into Tucker the whole time. Can you imagine? We don't know who you were, exercising your freedom.
Look, here's the one thing I'll say about Tucker Carlson. Okay, let's say that. Because I laugh a lot, too. I laugh randomly a bunch at jokes that I make in my head while making jokes on the air. I don't know. So I get the laughter moment. It's the transition right back to serious Tuck that makes me confused as to whether or not the laugh was authentic. I don't really care. I enjoy the bit as much as he does. But it's an interesting moment.
Can you imagine? We don't know who you were, exercising your freedom on a commercial airline over the weekend.
Call us.
But if you're the people who are watching the show without masks, give us a call. We want to celebrate you.
Yeah, see, I like that. We want to celebrate you. Give us a call. It's the laugh to the immediate transition back to serious Tucker that really got me the most as far as outside of the bit itself. And I'm certainly entertained by the bit that a CNN host in March is still complaining that people aren't throwing their masks on an airplane. I think we have a whole lot of data that says that that's maybe not anywhere near as necessary as some people would want you to believe. I don't get that. And to be honest, and I know cases are ticking up. If we talk about COVID for a quick second, I should almost put it on a timer. We should have like a timer that goes off. I get 60 seconds COVID, and then we're done on all things COVID. But essentially, if you're talking about it just a little bit, I know cases are going up. I know there's a new variant of interest that people are concerned about. I know that most of us are way too deep into this thing to make any decisions in our lives any differently, and we need no additional data. No one needs to tell us any more stats. No one needs to tell us to talk to any more doctors. None of us need any additional things to make any life choices any differently. So we really just have to give up. If you're a CNN person who wants to see a mask thrown on somebody's face and they don't want to put it on their face, you have to accept at this point in that everybody knows everything, and there's nothing else that we're going to say to each other that's going to make anyone make a different call. All right, I want to move on. Peter Doocy entertains me a lot. I like the Deuce. I enjoy the way he asks questions. I enjoy the way that sometimes those questions definitely seem like they're intentional traps, and other times they do seem much more legitimate than anyone wants to treat him as though they are. Him and the president had a back and forth that continues to go viral, so I wanted to play a little bit of it because it's talking about all of the things the president got wrong in the last few days. And my favorite part has nothing to do with Peter Doocy, someone that if you like politics of a certain kind, you probably love Doocy. If you don't, you probably hate Doocy and think he's the devil. Kind of like Jim Acosta is literally the devil to a lot of people in the world of just the crazy ways in which he asks questions. Not actually the devil. No one tweet me. No one get mad at that. But anyway, I want to play this because the thing that I'm most interested in is that the administration, the Biden administration, never, ever, ever admits doing anything wrong. It's politics 101. Sometimes you got to take it to the 60,000th degree, and this is what they do here because some of this stuff is so easy to refute that we didn't do that. None of that happened, but here's the question answer.
Are you worried that other leaders in the world are going to start to doubt that America is back if some of these big things that you say on the world stage keep getting walked back?
What's getting walked back?
Made it sound like
we're going to go. He went the way I wanted him to go. I do wonder if, like, in Doocy's brain, like, there is that moment where, like, the little kid is rubbing his hands together and he's like, oh, yeah, let's try it out.
In the last couple days, it sounded like you told U.S. troops they were going to Ukraine. It sounded like you said it was possible the U.S. would use a chemical weapon, and it sounded like you were calling for regime change in Russia.
Sure
and
did.
We know
none of the three occurred.
They all did.
None of the three occurred?
None of the three.
Mr. President.
You sure about that? None of those three things occurred? None of them. Why are you saying questions where you're watching things like video of me or listening to the words I say and then asking me about them? You're so wrong. A little more.
I was talking to the troops. We were talking about helping train the troops that are the Ukrainian troops that are in Poland. That's what the context. I sat there with those guys for a couple hours. That's what we talked about.
What?
So when you said
the Ukrainian troops that are in Poland, his staff had to walk that back too. The president's confused, is what they said.
You're going to see when you were there. You were not intending to
I was referring to meeting with and talking with the Ukrainian troops who were in.
See, you know what's so interesting about that back and forth and the denials is what President Biden actually said is you're going to see when you're there kids standing up to tanks and stuff. He made a great use of the horrific imagery that probably does exist in Ukraine. He just did it in a way where he told people that are not going to see it that they're going to see it. And now he pretends as though we got that wrong. When we talk about the fact that he called for a regime change because he said Putin cannot remain in power, he meant that he was talking about it from a moral stand. None of this makes any sense at all to anyone. It shouldn't. It doesn't have to. We have to find a way, in my opinion, to start having these conversations honestly. Like, truly, here's the thing. If I'm talking to someone right now, whoever you are listening to this radio station, who is of the Republican side of the aisle, of the side of the aisle that hates the president, these moments infuriate you. These moments where he just lies blatantly and people don't seem to hold his feet to the fire unless they work for organizations like Fox News. They make you so mad, and they make you further separated from any ability to talk to or listen to any of the points that get made on the Democratic side of the aisle because it's demonstrated how much crap exists and how many things are just blatant lies in the world of politics. I said all that to say that if you're on the other side of the aisle, you ignore all those things. You put your fingers in your ears the same way you accuse those Republicans of doing when Trump was in office. And then you go ahead and go after Republicans when they do political 101, denial of things, lie to the American people moments. If we hate it, if we hate the behavior, we have to hate it universally. I will keep saying that until I'm broken in the mouth, I guess, or until someone tries to break me one way or the other. We cannot allow for these moments to be things that we just ignore. I think the biggest game, this is just going off for an extra second, and I guess this is probably fairly repetitive. Most people probably already know this, but the biggest trick or the biggest game that politicians have played on us is caring so much about our side, we ignore their mistakes. That is the biggest trick that has been played on the American people because it allows for mistakes to be a part of the political process. And I don't just mean human mistakes. I mean gross, disgusting, lie to your face, proof that you're lying moments after you say it via some form of, here, let me just show you how much crap you just told to me. And none of that matters at all. One other thing that I want to talk about, one other quick thing, and then we'll take a break. Former President Trump has been in the news for a couple reasons. One, he put himself in the news, though, and I missed it yesterday, and I feel very sad that I did. But he got a hole-in-one. The president was very, very proud, the former president, of the fact that he got a hole-in-one on his own golf course. He was with a couple people who witnessed it and said it definitely happened. What I loved about it, and I would be super excited if I ever sank a hole-in-one that has never happened to me in my life, it would be a moment you care about a lot. He put out a written statement, the president did. He said, many people are asking, so I'll give it to you. It is 100% true. While playing with the legendary golfer Ernie Els, winner of 4 majors and approximately 72 other tournaments throughout the world, other professional golfers, he got a hole-in-one. He said it took place at Trump International Golf Club in West Palm Beach, Florida, on the 7th hole. Here's my favorite part, is the specificity that we get into. It was playing 181 yards in a slight wind. I hit a 5-iron, which sailed magnificently. Magnificently into a rather strong wind with approximately 5 feet of cut, whereupon it bounced twice and then went clank into the hole. These great tour players noticed it before I did. Their eyes are slightly better, but on that one hole only, their swings weren't. What a great statement. What a fantastic, fantastic piece of just, we got to put this out. We got to run this press release. Got to make sure everybody's notified. And even just that, I love the eloquence in which he kind of took a shot at the professionals he's playing with by saying their eyes are better than mine, but on this one hole, their swings were not. I am former President Trump, and I got a hole-in-one. Look, some people might make fun of him. I would do this. No one would care. I am not a former president. I'm barely someone that anyone knows about, if anyone knows about me. But I would put out the statement, too, and it would make me very happy. And I imagine it made the former president happy yesterday. So I'll say this, and I'm not doing this to try to sound like a guy who's an Uber fan or whatever. But congratulations, Mr. President, for the hole-in-one. I think that would be a fun moment for all if you were a part of it. All right, quick break, a lot more. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
Podcasts are American as hot dogs, apple pie, football, and sushi.
Oh, my goodness.
No.
Okay, maybe not sushi. Next time you have a craving for something sweet and tangy, download a Chad Benson Show podcast.
Boy, that is good. It's different because you get a little bit of saltiness. It's so good because it's sweet and salty at the same time.
Get a taste on iTunes, iHeart, or Spotify and binge to your ears' content.
Oh, yeah.
You're listening to The Chad Benson Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. A couple quick things. I saw, and this is a TikTok video, and I know I probably shouldn't have TikTok on my phone anymore. I'm working on that. I am entertained by many a thing on there and wind up talking about them often on the radio. But, yeah, I'm giving up a lot of my information to say the Chinese spies, I think, and others that are probably utilizing all that information. Anyway, let's move on. I saw a couple of these. I bought an Amazon return pallet and got over $5,000 of stuff is the title of this. This guy's name is Tom. His partner's name is Moon, which I thought is cool. I don't think I've ever met a Moon person, someone named that. I'm not judging. I'm just saying I would like to know a Moon at some point in my life. Anyway, they bought a return pallet from Amazon for about $400, and then you sift through it. I didn't know this was a thing. I actually was told by quite a few people in my life that they've done it before, so I'm the dummy who had no idea you could. They just kind of auction these off, and you have no idea what's in it. It's sort of like buying somebody's storage after they've just walked away from it, and then you just go through the return pallet of things. No guarantee that any of it even works. It could all just be broken stuff, but you might hit a jackpot. They did say that all told, if they are able to flip all the items inside the return pallet, as I said, they would make about $5,000 on their $400 purchase. But the funniest thing to me is like how many of the same item they kept pulling out. They had like 14 rice cookers that they found together. Maybe Amazon does this on purpose now. Lumps several of the same return items in the same pallet. 6 wall clocks, 2 pairs of rollerblades, 1 pair in blue, 1 pair in black, a 30 set of rechargeable keyboards and mice. Those are priced at $38.92 each. They just got a bunch of other random stuff, too. Two wooden coat hangers. They got a potted plant, lots of shelves to put up around their house. I want to do this now. And more specifically, here's the part that I can't actually guarantee will happen now. So this is not an offer currently, but may be an offer someday in the future. I want to give it away. I would like to buy a pallet and then give away the pallet that gets, I would call it the Craig Collins pallet, but that would not be appropriate on this show. So it would certainly be the Chad Benson pallet here, and he's not doing this, so no one come looking for it. But I think it'd be a lot of fun to see what a listener got in a return pallet for about $300 or $400. But I guess for now, since I can't do any of this, haven't asked with any of promotions people, have no approval legally by any involved, I guess all I can say is if you do one, open it online. I'll see it. I'll pay attention to it. I'll talk about it on the air because I do think it's interesting, the gamble that these things are, and if any of them actually pay off. It must be kind of fun. It's sort of like Easter, which I know is coming up in a few weeks, for adults. Everything is sort of hidden. You're not really sure what's in there, and you get to open up the eggs and find out what the prizes are. At least that's me. Moving on, this story going to get me in far less trouble because I'll offer you nothing. Much like the last one, just to reiterate, offered nothing for real. I saw that a couple wound up buying fake sunscreen while on vacation. They were travelers. This woman's name is Lauren. She's also on TikTok. They bought it in Thailand off of like a little stand. And that it's mean, one, for someone to sell something that's probably just moisturizer and claim it's sunscreen to charge more money for it. But two, of course, it's happening. I was amused by how many people were upset for the couple, like how terrible it is that this happened to them. Although actually they did point out that if the couple had a child or even a baby and they put the sunscreen on and the baby still got burned, how devastating that would be. And I agree, but you can't assume that every person in every foreign country who runs just like a little stand on the side, even here in our country, who runs just a little stand on the side is going to fully pay all the rules a lot of attention, or even that there are rules at all. You know, I think the fake sunscreen to make more money move is something that more people are probably making, and the amount of upset that you are should probably be a little bit more focused on the fact that maybe you should have packed it. Maybe you should have figured out a way to find a store that you knew for sure it was what it was. I feel bad for you, but I'm not sure that this is a unpreventable mistake, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't know. Maybe that's too hot of a take. And since they got sunburned, I don't know if I've just made a pun there. I'm going to move on. One more. Fashion Nova, a company I never heard of. They are a clothing company. They put out a tweet on social media offering 50% off their entire website. The reason that I'm mentioning it, the reason it went viral, the reason maybe anyone cares, they, like I assume a lot of other people, are making jokes about the Will Smith Chris Rock slap. And they said, we slapped $40 off of our entire site. It's time to rock new spring looks. That's well done. Let's be honest. That's something that I certainly was entertained by. There are a whole lot of memes out there in the world of the Will Smith Chris Rock slap. A lot of them are pretty entertaining. All of this is just a part of, I guess, internet / the culture we live in today. But I just thought it was so fun. And now it's obviously something that's getting me a lot of attention. Maybe some people even getting mad about it. In the comment section, several people are saying, how dare you make fun of violence? But I think to be honest, no one is really advocating for the slapping of each other in public on television between Hollywood celebrities. But you are all appreciating how viral something like this can go. And then actually, to be honest, you know what? I take it back. I'll go ahead and reevaluate that. I think that it would be okay if celebrities slapped each other a little bit. Not full on beat each other up, but come on. With so many things that happen in the world of elite Hollywood and the fact that we talk about it so much, if they want to hit each other and then they can also deal with the repercussions. Chris Rock wants to press charges. I'm all for that. Go ahead and hold Will accountable. But I can't tell them what to do. They're all adult people here. It's not going to be me that makes them go over the line and slap somebody else. But I will watch and enjoy and certainly laugh at the social media posts. Quick break, a lot more. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Thrilled to be here. Chad is back tomorrow. Look, when you throw around the term demagoguery, I'm going to play that audio on this show. I enjoy it quite a bit. CNBC's Joe Kiernan said this to Brian Deese. He is a Biden budget deficit hawk. Biden budget, that's not even the right thing at all. Excuse me, a Biden economic advisor who was talking about the deficit. What I think is so interesting about all this audio, though, as I'm about to play it, is that term at the end, is the value of that concept, something that certainly helped a lot of dictators be quite powerful at times in the past. The demagoguery of telling us one thing, intending to do another, or not even really caring about any of the logistics, any of the reality in the thing you're promising, just caring about if we like it, if it sounds good, if it appeals to us emotionally. Let's try it out.
Whatever the latest Build Back Better is going to look like, doesn't look like what it had looked like. Were you in favor of adding that to what we've already spent on the pandemic the last couple of years? And that you actually can bring down the deficit by spending more? You've heard that argument.
I do really like, by the way, this form of an interview. It's like, do you get any of the stuff that's making us upset right now? Any of the reasons we're mad at the stuff you're saying or the way we're behaving by claiming that more spending is somehow good when the amount of spending we've had so far has made things definitely worse? Are you really going to say this to me?
Speaker Pelosi.
Well, there's a lot of questions in there, so let me try to unpack them. I think to your first question, I think the answer is both. We need to be very thoughtful about both the expenditure and the revenue side of our budget.
You do.
What you see in the budget that we released yesterday is actually deficits coming down by $1.3 trillion this year, and that's a function of both. That's a function of rolling off some of the emergency spending programs.
And making a whole bunch of money off of the uber wealthy, and that is a plan that's not actually reality.
Programs that were put in place by the prior administration, this administration.
That's mostly pandemic spending. And that's another, I don't know if we should be demagoguing that, bringing the deficit down when everybody knows that it's because we're not going to spend so much on the pandemic and emergency relief. We're still increasing everything.
Well, but that wasn't a guaranteed thing.
I love the demagoguing. I love calling it demagoguery, to be so upset with the idea that we're just going to say, hey, we've spent a lot and inflation and other things are going up and all that seems like a bad thing. So here's a plan. We're going to spend more. And this time it's going to work out better for us all. How does that make sense mathematically? Stop asking those questions. Those are silly. We're just telling you the plan we have here, and it involves additional spending. I also want to play this just real quick. I enjoyed this audio the other day, too. And I've said this a lot, and I think that this is another example of demagoguery to a degree, at least in my opinion, where you just don't care about the truth ever, about facts, about rational thought. all you care about is appealing to people on an emotional level and making sure that you are the woke party, if that's the Democrats I'm talking about. You're the party that's for all the different whatever is the trendiest topic in the world of making society potentially better. And who cares what version of it is actually possible? The Green New Deal is one of the many examples of that. But this is a more subtle version that I certainly enjoyed. The president was asked a very simple question the other day, a question that his staff last week gave a totally different answer to. And again, it is that answer that you should really focus on because that's appealing to people and supporters on an emotional level. Just listen to the difference here. The staffer answered the same question, and he answered it last week, even though the president answered it just the other day.
And did you get any chance to watch much of the Judiciary Committee hearings?
I didn't get a chance to see any of it, unfortunately.
The president watched portions of Judge Jackson's hearing yesterday and today, and is proud of the way she has shown.
I'm sorry. I knew it's coming. I knew it was coming, and I still laughed at it. And we're not done. We're not even close. We got to get into all the different moments that are the appeal part. But I just love that the way it's sliced together, and it went viral online, is that I didn't get a chance to watch any of it. The president watched a bunch of the hearings. Here, let's continue.
Showcasing her extraordinary qualifications, her experience, and her even-handedness. Her dedication to following the facts, the law, and our Constitution as an independent judge is clear.
All right. Well, what else?
He was also moved by the grace and dignity she has shown, the deference to senators, and the level of detail she is offering.
Can't be anymore.
Reinforcing the value of her experience, her intellect, and the strength of her character.
That's what Biden thought last week. That's what he told the staffer who went up and talked about it, that, he was moved by so many of those things about the Supreme Court Justice nominee and the conversations about her. Just one more check with Biden just to make sure that that's actually fact and not some sort of crap political statement.
And did you get any chance to watch much of the Judiciary Committee hearings?
I didn't get a chance to see any of it.
I saw nothing. What are we doing, people? What are we doing? And why do you defend this stuff if you're someone that wants to defend any of this stuff? Why do you get mad at anybody that's like, Biden's a moron who says dumb things from time to time as our president? How does that not just feel like a fact that's true? I don't get it. I don't get it at all. One other quick thing, and I want to play this. I do like this a lot. This is Ted Cruz talking quite a bit about, and he was on Sean Hannity when he said this, about what we should be doing, about the correct way to handle what's going on right now with Ukraine. And then you ended on a punch that I think is really, really valuable and one that we definitely need to be considering a lot more than we are. And there's tremendous reason to do it. It's not just a political statement, but let's let Ted Cruz go first.
Right. We ought to be providing the weapons for the Ukrainians to defend themselves. We ought to be providing the Polish MiGs. We ought to be providing S-300s and Javelins and Stingers. And the Biden administration is slow walking all of that. And then number two, we ought to be going after Putin's revenue, and that means oil and gas. That means American energy production. And Biden is so much in hock to the Green New Deal radicals that he's unwilling to step up American energy production. I got to say, Sean, watching the cascade of blunders from Biden, that's 5 gaffes in 48 hours. I don't recall ever seeing an American president mess things up so badly.
They mess up this badly when they don't care. When they don't, and I don't mean they don't care about the message. They don't care about the facts. They don't care about totally contradicting themselves 24, 48 hours, maybe several minutes after they do it. Demagoguery. That is what they're doing right now. It is all about the way in which they appeal to what you think. And no one cares about the rationale behind any of it. No one even really cares, it seems, in this administration about keeping a unified message intact. They just don't. The administration seems very comfortable, staff, in just correcting the president after he says a thing. And then this is my favorite thing, too, and maybe we'll put this up on social media, at least Facebook.com/Craig Collins Show. You can see it there, but Facebook.com/Chad Benson Show, too. Biden had a cheat sheet in his hand during his press conference the other day. This is something he often has in his hand. There's a list to call on certain press members, the trusted ones, the safe ones. And then there's a second piece of paper that someone got a clear photo of that actually is titled. There's a big, giant, underlined and emboldened title of it, Tough Putin Q&A Talking Points. Then it has questions. And this is in giant type. two, by the way. Just two of these questions are taking up a full page in Biden's hand. If you weren't advocating for regime change, what did you mean? Can you clarify? Is the question staff wrote for our president. And then 2 bullet points. I was expressing the moral outrage I felt toward the actions of this man. I am not articulating a change in policy. You had to be that specific with this president, that clear in what you want him to say and what the question might be in hopes that he gets it right. This is like the kind of thing you'd give a child. I have to be honest. I'm not trying to be mean. It came off mean, but it is so overly simplified, so ridiculously specific. And the assumption is that, and this is the easiest of challenging questions that the president could be asked. There's also a second bullet point about Macron and some of the comments he made. And Biden's response was supposed to be, no, NATO has never been more unified. And that's it. They give him 2 little sentences. And I think staff would actually like our president to do that. Now, here, let me just ask you this quick question, and then we'll go ahead and take a break. And I'm going to go based on the worst possible assumption of both of our last 2 presidents. That's how I'm going to ask the question. The previous administration, in the worst possible way of believing how things worked, people said that president, President Trump, listened to nobody. He had a close inner circle, but for the most part, he shot from the hip. He answered questions the way that he thought he should answer them in the moment. No cheat sheets, none of this stuff. And we got the president we got, which obviously at times said and did a lot of things that a lot of people hated. Now we have a president who, according to his own staff, not only does he listen to them, they handle him to a degree that makes it seem like he's certainly not the president. Why would you need something that simplified to go ahead and answer 1 or 2 challenging questions from members of press about an issue this important, this significant in our society? Why would you need that much of a crib notes sheet in your hand in order to handle something like that? What does that say about where you are and where the staff thinks you are from a mental standpoint? This should be worrisome if it wasn't also very, very funny. All right, a quick break, a lot more. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
You stink like fear and white male privilege to me.
I do often out myself verbally as a gender. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm proud to be a gender.
Are you stupid? What? Are you kidding me?
Not a great way to use your white privilege.
Some people get it, some people don't.
You're listening to the Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Thrilled to be with you. Chad is back tomorrow. Let's do a roundup of some sillier things out there on the internet because we need a break. This is what I'm calling some sort of palate cleanser from the news of the day because all this stuff, you might talk about it, but it's not necessary. Don't tune away. I promise. It'll be fun. The first one is a little girl who was getting in a disagreement with her pop. She decided to go ahead and take matters into her own hands. I know some people are worried that the Will Smith slap across Chris Rock's face will already encourage young people to be more violent. I don't know if that's what I'm hearing in this, but it's possible from this little, very sweet-sounding kid.
You're not going to sandwich.
Why?
Because you're not listening, and I'll get you a knuckle sandwich right now, or you're not going to go ahead and listen to my words, and you can race tomorrow.
We can race tomorrow, but if I beat you again, you're going to give me a knuckle sandwich.
Yeah, a knuckle sandwich.
A Will Smith style, but I guess that would be a closed fist knuckle sandwich. The little girl. Apparently, if you lose a video game, this girl is very upset. Or if you actually lose, I think it might have been a physical race. In either scenario, the little kid is not happy with it. I can't wait for it to be called the Will Smith knuckle sandwich, or at least I'd encourage the child to think open hand. And I'm not encouraging violence. By the way, I want to not get any hate letters for any of that stuff. I don't want that to be out there. But that kid, to me, adorable. This is another thing, and I love this one probably even more than the little kid threatening to punch somebody in the face. This is a mother reacting to the fact that the school she sends her child to decided to take St. Patrick's Day photos. That's great. They decided to add a green screen, this is in Indiana, to the background of the St. Patrick's Day photos that the kids took, which made most of the children partially invisible, which is my favorite thing. When most kids show up in green to celebrate St. Patrick's Day, the absolute appropriate thing to do moving forward, all involved, if this was a mistake, it should not be, and everyone should do it. Take green screen photos to just have floating heads of children that you send back home. As I said, this mom's name is Amanda. She's reacting to how hilarious the end result was.
He had a dark green shirt on. The top of his hoodie is green, so he turned into the fence here. And he had a green mohawk, but that is completely gone. So I posted in a local moms group, like, does anybody else have funny pictures from St. Patrick's Day? And so many people do. So many good ones. And it ended up being just a hilarious fiasco. I might reach out to the company and see if I can get the unedited ones. Because honestly, they've brought me so much joy and laughter over the last days.
Yep, that's what I'm saying. Everyone should do this. Her child having a green mohawk makes it all the much better for me. But that is amazing. They're like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with this plan. What are you guys saying? Why would this plan have any sort of problem with it? We're just putting it out there into the world. That a bunch of kids showed up for St. Patrick's Day with green outfits on, and then we made them mostly invisible. I do think funny troll versions of school photos would be better than all the stuff I have. Anytime my mother reminds me that there's some photo somewhere, except for my second grade one. This segment became very much about me. I promised to only do it very quickly. My photo of myself, my school photo, in second grade is single-handedly the best photo I've ever taken in my entire life. Maybe I will put that up on social media, too. Facebook.com/The Craig Collins Show is my social media page. Facebook.com/Chad Benson Show is Chad's page. That's where you should go and follow for all things that are this show normally. But I really do feel very proud because my photo in second grade was essentially The Rock. I had the one eyebrow up before The Rock was really a thing. I think I beat him to the eyebrow look, and I have a photographic proof that it happened. And I hopefully will share it soon. One other, though, just quickly, another thing I found out there in the world of social media that I couldn't get over and I want to play, maybe not anywhere near as fun, but certainly a lot more viral. 2.9 million people watch this. This is a Domino's manager and I think a couple members of staff quitting together mid-shift with phones ringing because they felt like there were not enough people to handle the dinner rush, and so they just decided to walk out. And apparently they walked into an establishment that already was challenged in and of itself. Here is the audio that this woman put up on her social media page that's been seen by 2.9 million viewers, including, I imagine, a bunch of potential future employers quitting her job mid-shift.
This is the end. Final moments. Leaving it just how we found it. This job.
Yeah. Anytime you go for another interview, I don't care how right you think you were, how many of the things you think are on your side, or how many commenters jumping onto this post are saying, yeah, way to go, way to quit that job and screw that company. The next time you apply for any job at all, and any HR person worth even just a smidge of the ability to do a job like that, just a grain of salt in the world of what they're supposed to do, types your name into the old Google machine, finds Michaela pop up right here and is like, all right, we're not hiring this person. She does not handle stressful situations well, even if it's the fault of the company. Because the right approach to that is to fail by trying as hard as you can, in my opinion, and then maybe having a conversation and quitting the job later. I don't get the praise of quitting jobs like this, of pulling the childish move. I don't get it. Quick break, a lot more. This is the Chad Benson Show. Craig Collins filling in.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Thrilled to be with you. Lots and lots of stuff to talk about. I will play the CBS News audio from just the other night talking about the latest in the investigation, the panel that's gotten together to look at the January 6th events. I will say this before we get into it. I just want to preface with an idea. Right now, even though the doom version of this story is what I'm about to play and what CBS chose to broadcast, it is all just guesswork. It is all just assumptions. None of this has any proof behind it whatsoever yet, even though Bob Woodward and others are involved and trying to say this is giant news. It isn't necessarily. I'm also not dismissing it because the way this sounds is unique. It is interesting. It has value, at least in us talking about it and playing it, but it matters. And I know that this might sound defensive in how I'm saying it. It matters that you get this absolutely right. There's already been an impeachment trial into the former president on the events that happened that day. There was already a lot of effort made to look into all of the facts that were obtainable at that time. None of this was stuff that apparently had any value, relevance, or was even known at that time. And if you wanted to look one other direction, you wanted to put the tinfoil hat and be a conspiracy theorist, this is great in the world of political posturing. This is great in the idea of maneuvering in order to convince voters that something horrible happened when all you're really doing is asking a question with no answer.
President Trump spoke repeatedly on the phone with allies and supporters, some of whom urged him to put an end to the violence. But none of those calls are reflected in the 11 pages of those White House records for January 6th given to the House Select Committee. There is a massive 7-hour and 37-minute gap in calls from 11:17 a.m. to 6:54 p.m., which includes the most violent period of the attack. The committee is now investigating whether the president and top aides used so-called burner or disposable phones to avoid scrutiny of their calls during that time.
Last night, Trump said in his statement, quote, "I have no idea what a burner phone is. To the best of my knowledge, I have never even heard the term," end quote. A Trump spokesperson said that Trump had nothing to do with the records and assumed any and all of his phone calls were recorded and preserved.
Yeah, that is the comment and the statement from the former president that I don't know what a burner phone is. That's a confusing James Bond kind of thing, in my opinion, that I am not really sure about. Now, he could be lying. I will say that. All of this could be purposeful. The missing set of information, the missing diary entries, missing phone calls that seem to have happened because of text messages and other things that we've heard about publicly before. All of that leads to the idea that everything you just heard could potentially be a big, giant cover-up. It could also be nothing. There's also an opportunity or a potential for this to not have an answer that's bad at all. Maybe someone misplaced some things. Maybe other people were handing phones to the president because they weren't calling former President Trump directly. Maybe those that wanted to interact with him knew maybe he wouldn't answer his phone. So maybe whatever phone was of record wasn't one that for whatever reason, I don't know. I'm just throwing out hypotheticals. I'm sure we can shoot holes into some of those because the assumption of specific guilt is powerful politically, not so powerful legally. And I think it does matter that we get these sort of things right when we're talking about people as significant as presidents of our country. Moving on, I want to play some other audio. This is Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. He is talking about a couple different issues that are being talked about often in schools by parents, by teachers, by school boards. I want to play out the entirety of the audio, and then I don't actually want to necessarily react to the one or two common talking point things that you hear him referring to, CRT, critical race theory, or the way in which gender identity issues are now a part of curriculum in schools. I want to take a different approach as to why this matters to so many people on a more macro, more large scale. But here's the conversation first.
I've been traveling around the state. I've been encouraging people, if you don't want CRT taught to your children, don't let it be taught. If you are concerned about the pushing, and that's what the left is doing, they're pushing this gender identity issue on our children, I say don't let it be pushed. So show up to school board meetings respectfully. If your school board doesn't listen to you, run for office. A lot of parents are running for school board right now, and that's the best way to take care of this.
That is an interesting idea, that a lot of parents would just decide to be more involved in that way in order to prevent any of these problems from cropping up. But here's the better way to talk about this, in my opinion. Because when we talk about specific issues, since we all have our own opinions and we all retreat to our own corners, we make no progress. No one moves further along in getting closer to agreeing on an issue, because instead of talking about, say, the problem with a school board deciding how to educate a child on an issue that is significant to a parent, an issue that a parent might feel is inappropriate to be taught in a school, we talk about the issues themselves, and we talk about them like adults. We have conversations where our opinions are fully formed on all of these concepts, on CRT, on gender identity issues, every single one of them, and we abandon, again, the thought process that matters, in my opinion, in talking about why it is or isn't appropriate to teach it to children. And I know children is a varying term, right? A lot of times we might picture a young grade school kid when we talk about the things being taught to a child, but this certainly would cover high school students and whatnot as well. CRT, even more specifically, by the way, it is true to say this, originally is something that was used in graduate school classes for law degrees and has now been simplified in ways to be attempted to be taught to kids of all ages. The reason any of this matters, and any of this is what we're talking about, is the attempt to try to shape the opinions of children whose opinions aren't shaped yet. Not shape their world or their understanding of the world via facts. Not talk about them as far as the way I was educated when I grew up, of learning the history of something, the history of slavery, the history of whatever it might be. You just learn those things. This is a chance or an attempt to actually shape the opinions themselves, to push kids to believe or think certain things because it's taught to them in a classroom by a teacher who behaves as though it is a fact. CRT is a theory. It's in the title, critical race theory. Some of these other conversations we're having, things like gender identity issues, if that's what we're going to call this now, gender identity issues are something that people are coming to in a cognitive way. It is not necessarily simply teaching the biology of a thing anymore. Now it's talking about more of the mental aspects of how these things are believed to be different depending on who you ask and what concept of this or that people have. And I'm not trying to disrespect anyone, by the way. I'm actually trying specifically very hard not to, because I know the moment I do, anyone that feels differently is immediately out of this conversation. Anyone that hears he doesn't respect CRT as a real thing, or he doesn't think gender identity issues matter as much as other people do, we're all done talking about it. It is inappropriate, if you are an educator, to decide to teach a child, not your child, but a child, how to think. I think that is inappropriate. Not necessarily the way in which you educate them on things they would then shape as their own opinions in their own life, but you're trying to coach them to be on the side of more opinion to an extent based conversations, and that is wrong. I hope this made sense. I hope I got to a clear version of the point without going after the specifics in this issue, because it shouldn't be what matters. If you go in front of a school board, if you have a conversation with educators about why you feel it is inappropriate for curriculum like this to exist, do not allow the conversation to break down to the level of if CRT is accurate or not, because both of you will have differing opinions, and that part of the conversation doesn't matter. What you want to keep talking about is whether or not it is fact-based, history-based education, or whether opinion is involved, and you then have to ask those who are educating children in classrooms to not teach opinion. It's that simple. Don't teach it. You can teach varieties of opinions if you really need to teach others' opinions, but don't teach your own. Because when you start instructing people in a way that this is my opinion, but now I'm going to shape it as a fact to a mind that's not fully formed yet, we are doing something wrong. And we should all be able to acknowledge that. I think it's that simple. And I do think that's part of the way in which we get further along in some of these things. Honestly, even when a lot of us talk about, say, the political talking points of the day, and I know I referenced this before, and how many of us now fold to, well, my political side thinks, and then you start saying the things that your political side have told you to think and say, we stop thinking for ourselves. We stop coming to the conclusions that we need to come to based on going out and finding facts. We just let other people tell us their version of, and I'm doing air quotes, you can't see it, facts. And we need to stop doing that. And most importantly, and I have no children, I have no real involvement in this fight, I guess, which might mean my opinion doesn't matter to a lot of people, and that's fine. But I would say is that the same thing is something we cannot allow ourselves to do we cannot allow educators to start saying is the appropriate way to teach people. I would be totally okay, this is just me, with someone instructing children on the theory, critical race theory, if they also taught every other theory out there that is in direct contrast to, or maybe it might have almost nothing to do with critical race theory. And the entire time in that classroom, telling them maybe the two things we learned during the pandemic just a little bit differently. Those two things would be all of these are theories. All of these have different arguments around them. And go talk to your parents about it. Go have a conversation with them if you want to better understand where they're coming from. Remember, that's what we said about COVID. Go talk to your doctor. Go talk to the person that you trust about all this stuff. Parents want the opportunity to be involved in the shaping of their children's opinions. I don't think that's bad. I don't think that's bad at all, and I think most Americans agree, and that's probably why we're having this discussion in the first place. And some people are using a political talking point, a shocking one. Parents deserve a role in the education of their children, and others are saying maybe not, because that is an obvious, simple point, and everyone should universally agree. All right, quick break, a lot there. This is the Chad Benson Show. Craig Collins filling in.
I usually don't get into politics. As an ordinary suburban housewife, I feel a little disrespected. I teach my children not to name call.
You are a blabbermouth!
Come on, man.
Guys, can we please keep the chatter to a minimum?
Chad Benson.
Just a loudmouth.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Thrilled to be with you. Lots of stuff to talk about. Apparently, there's a list online of slang terms that are no longer cool. Slang terms that should be out of date and some that maybe need to make a comeback. I don't know. In today's world, I know slang terms are often something that young people are more into. As you get older, you stop caring about shortening things that don't need to be shortened. And I get confused about some of the stuff that people say. I don't know. I just think it's silly the way that some of this works. But apparently, if you're using any of these terms, you need to know that you're no longer cool. And that apparently this is something that needs to just... I think that some of these never had to exist. Anyway, let's just get to them. On fleek is something that now doesn't matter. I was never in on fleek, and now I'm out of on fleek, and I don't even know how to be on fleek, but that's a thing, and I've just ruined it. I used it so many times there. I'm sure I'm no longer officially cool. Now it's a thing. Bugging is a thing that I don't remember at all. Tripping, again, I don't get these. Someone needs to explain to me why a slang term is basically the full word, just a little bit shorter. Poppin' is another one. You can't say anybody's the bomb anymore. That's out. Flava is wrong. I'm sorry. That one did get me. I don't use Flava a lot. I should. Flava Flav. I know him. I'm aware of that. Nothing is fresh anymore. That slang term is out. You cannot turn anything up. If you're turning something up, it's now going to force everybody to leave. No one is fly any longer, which is very disappointing. No doubt is apparently a phrase that is out. I don't know about that. I feel like I still might go there. Nothing is tight anymore, and you are not going to be allowed to front anymore, or front in specifically. Also, any word ending in easy apparently is no longer cool. Do not end your phrases in easy. I don't know how to feel about this other than to say that the new generations decide what terms they think are cool, and the older generations probably don't care. I did also see that I think it's Gen Z that's telling millennials to stop posing in silly ways in photos. I think the teacup is one of the ones. I'm not sure if I'm getting that right, where you kind of like lean your back a certain way and you look sort of like a teacup. Apparently, according to some, it's not cool. Live your life. Do whatever you want to do. Be on fleek, bug and trip. Do all the things, and I won't judge you for it. And I love the fact that these are the ways we decide what is and isn't okay anymore. I want to move on, and at least in a way that I very much will enjoy for a little bit. Not in a turrid way. I don't want that to sound like it just did. Katy Perry split her pants on television the other day. And my favorite part of this moment, and you can't see it, and I know the value here is the visual of what's happening. but they wind up trying to, like, tape it together. This happens all on television. They aired it, which says something about Katy Perry. She was like, yeah, it'll be fine. Go ahead and put that on television. I respect her for it. But she's actually singing about skin-tight jeans as she tries to lower herself, you know, in that catcher's crouch kind of position toward the ground and splits her pants right in two. And the people there, because it's American Idol and there's a bunch of contestants sitting and watching the judges sing, are just going nuts about how hilarious this whole moment is. I think this is kind of a refreshing escape, though, from a lot of the crazy we talk about all the time. So let's try it out. Let's hear a little bit of Katy Perry singing, splitting her pants, which you can actually hear, and then getting them taped up, which you can hear as well. Okay, the fact that you can hear the rip, I don't know if somebody in the audio department enhanced it. I imagine they did, but maybe they didn't. Maybe it was that loud of a thing. They also, I guess, could have added the audio after. That is possible.
That was a first, ladies and gentlemen. The concert is officially over.
I love the fact that the other two judges just immediately start laughing at her. Luke Bryan is pointing and laughing, which is exactly what you'd expect of a person like that. And then it's just so, every part of it is just so fun. Lionel Richie, of course, saying that he thinks the whole thing is over.
I get some tape, some gaffer tape.
I'm so sorry. All video will be collected.
No, it wasn't.
It's just the notes.
She leans over the table, and you hear the tape going right up the backside to tape the pants back together. And they just get right back into the music. I mean, that's a pro. If you want to teach the American Idol kids how one day to navigate both stardom and the potential wardrobe malfunctions that'll happen during it, that is probably how it's done, to have people run onto stage and tape up your pants on the backside so you can just keep performing and playing whatever it is the song is you're doing. I mean, there's no better lesson, honestly, than that one. I think all the kids can go home this season. They've all learned a lot, and now they know what it costs to be a true star, at least in my opinion. But it was certainly a funny moment, and for whatever reason, my wife is still in on all these singing talent shows, and I know there's a lot of them, so I still watch a lot of them. At times, it feels like, how am I still watching American Idol at all? How am I still watching The Voice? But then the missus turns it on, and I guess I just don't. I don't walk out of the room because, well, I get suckered into everything. But Katy Perry, I do give kudos to you one last time. This is certainly a moment where I respect you more for allowing all of that to be on television. It was a pretty fun moment, to say the very least. Quick break, a lot more. Greg Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Thrilled to be with you. Lots and lots of stuff to talk about out there in the world. I guess we can keep talking about the Will Smith, Chris Rock thing for just a second, but we'll do it in a little bit of a different way. I love this. And I don't know if you know anybody in your life. I've met a couple people more recently, people that are younger, let's say people in their 20s or so, that seem really into astrology. They seem to really believe a lot of the concepts and things out there. Apparently, astrology predicted that Will Smith would smack Chris Rock in the face. I'm not sure it got to that level of specificity, but here are some of the headline things I saw being shared on social media. And actually, there is an article up in the New York Post. Will Smith's astrological signs and whatnot shows why he was on the edge and feeling chaotic in the first place. He was fired up, and there are several different apparent reasons for it. I guess you also have to dive into the birth chart of his wife, Jada, to really get a good sense in all this. Apparently, some of that stuff is going to give him an eccentric and strong-willed energy, but also can make him immensely unpredictable. His moon was dancing with Pluto, which is just a weird thing to say into a radio microphone, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. That planet is one of domination and power struggles. Oh, my God. Every part of this is great. I'm going to stop. We don't care. But to be honest, the thing that I do really enjoy about this is how many people I've talked to that really do believe in a lot of this stuff. And I'm not telling you it's wrong. Like, I'm not actually saying that all this stuff is crap. I don't know. I don't know for sure. It's not something that I've ever bought into, especially if someone tries to explain to me that the reason that Will Smith smacked Chris Rock in the face is that his moon sign was dancing with Pluto. But I will say that it's just fun that we're in a world now where we can talk about the ways that, and here, actually, you know what? All right, fine. I'll try to make it a tad bit serious, and then we'll move on. And it is going to be a bit of judgment on generations. I'm a millennial, so my generation is at fault too, and we can be involved in said judgment. And the younger generation, Gen Z, I think a lot of this interest in astrology or whatever it might be, or the Great Resignation, all the stuff that's happening for younger people, going online and being proud of the way in which you quit a job, et cetera, is to take blame away from you, right? To say that it's the moon and sun signs or whatever it might be, the astrological map of a Will Smith that caused him to hit a guy in the face, does make you blameless. It's like, oh, man, it's just my moon. That's just what's going on. I would have loved that in Will Smith's apology. He did deliver one, by the way. I wish it had been this. And again, I know that there's people that believe in this. I'm not actually telling you I have any definitive proof that you're wrong and I'm right. We'll all just live our own lives. I don't want hate mail from people that believe in these things. I really don't, mostly because it's not my show. Chad Benson doesn't want hate mail, and I'd feel bad if he got some. But all I'll say just one more time is that I think the interest in some of this stuff sometimes, no longer being specific as to which things I'm talking about, and I know you can't figure it out, is to take blame away from the individual. Because the more and more we do that, the more likely, I guess, people are to just feel comfortable with whatever bad things we do or whatever things are our fault. It seems that fault is a very hard concept for as we go further down the line. This generation to the next one, fault is always a trickier and trickier thing, it seems, to navigate. Or I guess the president, he falls into a category that is fairly different in the world of generations, and he is never at fault in his own opinion. And I do love this audio. I'd like to play this. It is of first the president just the other day answering a question, a valuable one, about the hearing process for his Supreme Court nominee, Ketanji Brown Jackson. He was asked if he's seen any of it. He definitively answers the question. We flash back then to audio from a week ago in which a Biden staffer had a very, very lengthy statement. I don't even think this was in response to a question. I think the staffer just added this to the statements from the president about this process. It is confusing when you hear both together.
And did you get any chance to watch much of the Judiciary Committee hearings?
I didn't get a chance to see any of it.
None.
The president watched portions of Judge Jackson's hearing yesterday and today.
He did.
And is proud of the way she is showcasing her extraordinary qualifications,
all right,
her experience, and her even-handedness.
That's got to be it, though, because
her dedication to following the facts, the law, and our Constitution as an independent judge is clear.
It's all of it, though. He
was also moved by the grace and dignity she has shown, the deference to senators, and the level of detail she is offering, reinforcing the value of her experience, her intellect, and the strength of her character.
Let me ask you this question. This is just between you and I. Don't worry. No one else has to know. Do you think that the staffer even had a conversation with the president? Do you think the president forgot about that conversation? Or do you think the staff for this president has gotten so comfortable making up the positions of the White House that they just do it on their own? And again, I equate this back to the arguments that were made about our previous president, President Trump, for those who really hated him. They thought that he had so few in his inner circle. He listened to advice from so few people. He shot from the hip so often and said things that people were offended by and whatnot. That's what happened in the Trump administration. It seems like this administration is so comfortable disagreeing with the boss. Like, if you worked in a place like this, let's just say this isn't the most powerful position in our country, the person who should probably be the best of us, but just any place you worked. And let's say a week before you hear from the top boss in the company, one of the other middle managers gave you all a statement about the things that they thought or felt or I guess somehow relevant to your job, things they'd like to see you do. Just reactions to stuff going on. I mean, we can even make it more specific. I feel like I need this to be as perfect of an analogy as possible. Let's say that they almost offered corrections to the workplace. You need to do this and this and this, and the boss will love you. And then the following week, the boss gives a statement, and he's like, I don't care about any of that stuff. None of that matters. No one should have told you it did. But even more importantly, I guess, in this scenario, he doesn't even seem to be aware of it. Like Biden might have watched the Supreme Court nominee process. He didn't watch his staff talk about him. That's not something he catches. And I guess if there's one other thing that Trump did better, and this is a universal thing, I don't think you can disagree no matter what side you're on, is he watched a lot more television. Apparently Trump is not watching any coverage, Biden is not watching any coverage, even of himself. And that should probably worry some people just a bit. I don't know how much you actually want to get worried about it, but at least a little bit. By the way, Tucker Carlson had a long take on Biden last night. I will play part of that, I think, a little bit later on in the show today, but I thought it was tremendously interesting. All the different ways, the mistakes, the things that happen, the issues that we're having today with this administration are ones that need to be addressed much more significantly. There was also this moment, though, with Tucker. The reason I bring him up, I was quite entertained by this. He was talking about a CNN host, someone who was recently on a flight and complained about some maskless passengers and the television they were watching and the joy that Tucker gets out of this segment. Although I do have a question about it, is some that I think I've not seen in a little while from a Tucker Carlson. Let's try it out.
Because they feel things so deeply, and that's why they typically commute from the apartment to Whole Foods to work. But sometimes they get out of that routine and go into the wider world. That happened to CNN's Chris Liza over the weekend. And here's what happened next. Quote, couple in front of me on the flight refused to wear masks. They were tuned into Tucker the whole time.
I did it with him.
Can you imagine? We didn't know who you were exercising your freedom on a commercial airline over the weekend.
I did not do that part with him. I love the transition there. I love the deep laugh, the having so much fun, and then right back to doing my show.
They were tuned into Tucker the whole time. Can you imagine? We didn't know who you were exercising your freedom on a commercial.
You know my favorite part? I know he's inviting them to call into the show and talk to him. It might be the deep breath in between the transition from I am hilarious and this is hilarious to we don't know what's going on here, but we'd like to know more. I'm entertained by that wildly. And actually, you know what's interesting? And I'll just try to connect two pieces together now. CNN's Chris Liza is saying that about the maskless people in front of him to blame Tucker Carlson for their behavior. It's something that happens often. People decide to transition from one thing to another in order to make sure that the person that they think is powerful, quote unquote, gets the actual slap in the face. Not the people in front of you on the airline that you think are making the wrong decision. And I guess I probably shouldn't take time to argue about whether or not masks are necessary on planes anymore. That'll take us in the wrong direction. But I say all that to say this. Howard Stern and Charlemagne the God went viral for their takes. Two interesting radio people went viral for their takes on the Will Smith slapping Chris Rock thing. Part of what Charlemagne the God said is actually that there's probably a deep amount of problems going on in the world of Will Smith, according to his book, according to a bunch of other things out there. And that maybe that slap, according to that host, had a lot more in it than just the moment that caused it. And I think that's an interesting take. Howard Stern compared Will Smith to former President Donald Trump, said that the two are almost exactly alike. And I didn't think, by the way, when I woke up after the events of the Oscars, that anyone anywhere could try to throw shade at Donald Trump for Will Smith smacking Chris Rock in the face. I never thought that, like, I know that the derangement syndrome is a thing and that every time you have an opportunity to do I'm talking about this, and also it's relevant because this guy is awful over here, a thing. But this one's the most amazing. It's the most amazing because I don't think Trump ever slapped Jim Acosta in the face. And I think he wanted to on multiple occasions, but he never did it. I think only if you had that, if you had the two like slaps and you could play them together of both hands hitting faces, then you can equate it. But for people to like be like, wait, what do I compare this thing to that I disagree with? I know. Let me find a way to mention the former president. It shows the problem is probably more on you than on anyone else, no matter how many of the criticisms you might have that could be right, that you feel are right, any of that, it's kind of irrelevant. If you wake up every day over a year after the guy's no longer in office and still need to have every moment where you think that someone's a bad guy has to go back to him, you just need to take a nap, take a whole day, maybe go to a spa, whatever it is you do, Howard Stern, to relax and get over it. Move past it, move on from it, talk about other people or talk about Will Smith. Specifically, which is something, again, that Charlamagne the God kind of did in talking about the book that Will wrote and his reaction that way. But I did think it was very interesting, and they were not the only ones to draw conclusions and, like Howard, to equate it all back to Trump. And then, again, if you do that, you actually have like a 3-minute dissertation on how you still hate former President Trump, which to me is interesting. Oh, and by the way, anyone that doesn't know this, he got a hole-in-one the other day on the golf course. Trump did, and very proud of it. You can see what I think is a very fun and very funny message about it, statement about it, that is definitely not on Twitter. All right, a quick break, a lot more. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
Hashtag me too. Hashtag immigration reforms. Hashtag help. I'm trapped in a hashtag factory and I can't get out. The Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Real quick, this is odd. It seems like I'm just going to keep talking about the Will Smith thing, even though we're getting further and further away from it. It's just a story that never dies for several reasons. Richard Williams, the guy that Will Smith played in King Richard, the father of Venus and Serena Williams, has weighed in just a little bit in the last 24 hours or so. He said, we don't have all the details of what happened. My favorite of the things he said, because we saw it. We watched all the moments we do have. He might not. I'm not going to say that Richard Williams, because actually a lot of people didn't watch the Oscars, so maybe he hasn't seen it. His daughters were there. They should be able to fill him in. But we don't condone anyone hitting anyone else unless it's in self-defense. That's Richard Williams, the guy that Will Smith described as a crazy dad who looked like a crazy dad all the time. Not sure if there's any video of him ever slapping another person. Also, Will Smith's mom was in an interview. I think this is with a local ABC affiliate somewhere in the country. But Will Smith's mom popped up on television, Caroline Smith, and kind of defended her son while saying she was surprised to see what she saw. How odd is that we're in a time, and I don't know that this is all that unique, because this is probably a news move that's been made before, but that it can make the round so significantly of the Venus sisters' father, who was a more well-known person, of course, in his own right, and then Will Smith's mom out there in the world answering questions and talking about stuff. That's it. This is something I hope that never, ever happens to me in any scenario whatsoever. And my mother loves to text me during any radio thing I do. I don't want to ever be embroiled in a controversy in which someone calls up Ma to get a take from her. But here's Caroline Smith.
Even Will's mother admits she was surprised.
He is a very even people person.
Is he now? All the time?
That's the first time I've ever seen him go off.
First time I've ever seen it. Mom's first time ever seeing it, so that alone makes us forgive Will Smith, is that Ma says it's never happened before, and she promises she's had a talking to Will Smith now, and he promises not to do it again. I feel like that's the world we're in, or that's what the news wants us to take away from that. One other thing, just quickly, before we take a break, and it's a bit of an adult topic, so I'm going to navigate it as best I can, but I always say with this that if there's kids around and you want them to earmuffs themselves, now is an earmuff moment. But again, I'll do it in a valuable way. A new survey has said that people stop turning the lights off before getting romantic. Let's call it romantic. 61% of people become more romantic and no longer worry about if the lights are on or off. There's no strong preference anymore. A lot of people used to, for quite some time, turn the lights off for this kind of thing. 11% of people are likely to 100% of the time when being romantic, when having mommy-daddy time, or whatever you want to call it, leave the lights on. Another 10%, this was back in 2011, felt the same way. Today, 28% actually fully want to turn the lights off compared to 41% just about 10, 11 years ago, and that number continues to go upward. The most interesting thing to me is the percentage who don't care at all. Maybe our lives are just very busy. Maybe there's so many distractions, so many things out there in the world. Your phone is always blowing up. You got to pay attention to it as much as you can, that when those romantic moments in your life happened, none of those deciding what to do in the world of lights being on or anything, maybe windows being open, none of that matters. You just go ahead and live the romance because you don't want to take yourself out of the mood. I get that. That makes sense to me. You don't want to ruin any sort of romantic feelings you're having. All right. One other quick thing, and then we'll take a break because I'm sure most people want me to stop talking about that topic. We'll move on. Is a list of the things that scared you most or scare you most now as an adult, but as a child you didn't care about at all. I really like the list, and maybe we'll get to more of them in a bit. But number one is the check engine light. And that's absolutely true. As a child, don't care. As an adult, what is going on with my car? Quick break, a lot more. Craig Collins filling in on The Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. I have not talked much in the 2 days I've been here. Chad is back tomorrow about the Supreme Court nomination, the process going on with Ketanji Brown Jackson. The reason why I haven't talked about it is not because I'm avoiding the topic, but I do think it's interesting that a lot of people have a lot of things to say about the process itself and how our president started out that process by saying that he was intent to hire a African-American woman, that he wanted to go that road specifically, regardless of any sort of value or any sort of skill level, that the goal first and foremost was to be inclusive, et cetera, et cetera. Now, they found a person who has a tremendous amount of experience. All have said on both sides, even as they're questioning her for some of the things in her past, that this person is immensely qualified from her career to be a Supreme Court justice. What I find interesting about that, and some of the questions and conversations we've had in light of the way this process has gone, is how that becomes a part of the conversation still, that this person is a quote-unquote diversity type of hire thing at a very high level within our government, when the reality is, from a skill set standpoint, it didn't have to be. It doesn't even have to be talked about at all. That leads me to just quickly mention the NFL. The NFL is requiring teams to hire a woman or a minority as coaches for 2022 for the 2022 season, specifically an offensive assistant coach. It is odd to have the statement be female or member of an ethnic or racial minority group. Like, one or the other is okay, and then the NFL, the league itself, will reimburse the teams some amount of money for the diversity hire. Doesn't this diminish the qualifications, or at least the perception of the qualifications of the individuals who could get hired into these roles? And I honestly understand even further that for the NFL, it's a position you can then talk about publicly. There is a value from a branding standpoint to say how we're inclusive because of a mandate, a rule we put in place. And I'm a white dude in my mid-30s that is told from time to time that I'm not allowed to talk about these topics, and I understand and I get it, but it's a simple question I'd like to ask moving forward. If we want more diversity in our society, if we want to see beyond color, do all those things that are, I assume, tremendously challenging for some and then maybe not all that challenging for a lot of other people, don't we just start doing it without saying it? Isn't it more valuable to say have women or have minority coaches get hired in the NFL because they are the most qualified individuals for the position? Wouldn't there be some sort of value in having a conversation? And if you're a league, beyond just the PR value of it, and saying, hey, we think that there's qualified people out there. We've created a list, and I know this would be fraught with problems to have a league create a list of people that we think are overqualified for jobs, and we'd love for people to consider them. And the people on this list, for whatever reason, are going to wind up triggering a sweet bonus for you, the company. Now, I think that's probably still too far, but it might not do what we're seeing now, which is create the conversation we're claiming to avoid. So many of these individuals, companies, what have you, want diversity to be a part of the workplace, but they do it in a way that's so on the nose, like describing it from the beginning, again, to go back to the Supreme Court process and talk about the Supreme Court Justice nominee, Ketanji Brown Jackson. Why say any of that stuff at all? And then when those conversations do come up, if a politician goes the road of, we think the reason you're getting this nomination is this, this, and this, they look terrible. They look awful for thinking that, as opposed to them just following the logic that was presented to them at the start. I just think that that's the more valuable way to get what some seem to be after, but also to do it in a way that does seem fair to everyone. Just hire the people with the best possible qualifications and allow those people to have jobs in those respective fields, no matter who those people are. And when I say those people, I mean anyone. I don't want anyone to take and misconstrue that. I mean anyone, any individual, any race, any sex, anything, any individual that has a opportunity for a job in any field. We should all be evaluated. We should, based on our qualifications and our qualifications alone. That's the argument, right? And then it gets turned into this other thing that requires this and that and whatnot. And I do think it takes away from any of the good anyone is trying to do. All right, I want to move on to something else. This is CNN fact-checking President Biden on some of the things he said and then the ways in which his administration tried to pivot away from those things. You know it is bad when CNN sounds critical, and the way in which they've sounded critical recently of this president. I just want to play this because I am entertained. And then there is actually a description at the end where Caitlyn actually does not go, I think, the road that Tapper was trying to get her to go, but we'll get to that in a second, because even as they explain it, there's the sense of criticism, which is a lot from a CNN.
Caitlyn, President Biden suggested that no one could have interpreted his remarks as calling for regime change.
Again, that might be the totality of the judgment. No one, but it's there.
Of course, Jake, many people raise that question of whether or not that is what he was advocating for at the end of the speech. But today he says he is not walking back his statement that President Putin cannot remain in power. But, Jake, he also says he is not stating a new policy from the United States government.
Sorry. He's not walking back the statement that he cannot remain in power. But also, if he remains in power, that's okay. How do you, because he's not, there's no policy change. There's no desire for us to try to get him not in power. I would love to have an argument with President Biden. I would. It's just like an everyday person. And I'd love for the argument to get to a point where he throws out an ultimatum, because a Joe Biden ultimatum, a President Biden ultimatum, is the weakest thing you'll ever hear in the entirety of your life. It'd be something like, and I think that we can no longer speak to each other unless you come back to me moments after this conversation and try to talk to me again. Then that'd be fine. That would be every moment. I should do this from now on when I'm having an argument with anybody I care about, say the missus. I should take the Joe Biden strong stance approach. Be like, honey, I know we've been arguing for 20 minutes about whether or not I forgot groceries, and I'll tell you that I refuse to admit that I forgot them, but also I did, and I am sorry for that. That's just the way that this stuff continues to go, and it's something that, as I said, continues to very much entertain me, to say the very least. I guess also there's one other piece of audio that's out there that I should get to. This is Karl Rove. He has slammed Joe Biden as being problematic, comments about his regime change and other things. These are things that are going to be a concern on an international scale. The continued missteps by our leaders are ones that have a fallout that exists that obviously we might not talk about as much as we should sometimes. And if they just continue to happen again and again and again, the value of that fallout is significant. Let's go.
President obviously wanted to do more than just come out and talk about the budget today. He wanted to also address this issue of this comment about Putin not being, can't remain in power. How do you think he did?
Well, he probably said this was his, sort of emotional response to it so many times that we're going to be stuck with it. But look, this was a problematic phrase. He had four problems he created for himself by misstatements. This was the biggest one, that Putin could not remain in power. Also close to it was, if the Russians use chemical weapons, the West will respond in kind. We don't even have chemical weapons. There were two lesser ones, that the U.S. troops were going to be in Ukraine and that we were in the middle of a food crisis. But this is problematic, and it's having an effect on the president's polling numbers, because this is not the first time we've had a misstep on this. Take a look at this. This is in Gallup, actually in the Fox polling. Strong leader. Back in August of 2020, during the campaign, 47-47. After Afghanistan, 45-53. Today, 36-61.
He is doing the yes/no on the answer strong leader. Karl Rove is comparing how 47% of those who answered a Fox poll back in August of 2020 said yes, Biden is a strong leader. And now today, about a month ago, in February, and this is before these latest blunders, 36% now say yes and 61% now say no. That number is continuing to go the opposite direction. These things do matter. These things are important. These things are things that I can't seem to stop talking about because of just how significant they are. And then I guess one more time, just to mention and talk about the billionaire minimum income tax plan that Joe Biden has, and how he feels that it's going to be the thing that actually gets that sweet, sweet amount of money the government is already spending back in the pockets of the government, so that they don't have to ramp up the taxes on us to fix everything. The big problem with all of this is that if you truly go after unrealized appreciation assets, things in which the very, very rich within our society utilize to say, prevent themselves from paying as high of taxes as they could. And even more importantly than that, if a policy like this tries to go after everyone in that bracket in a one fell swoop move, and we're going to get a whole lot of money all at once from these individuals, this is as simplistically as it's said, and it's something that gets said a lot, they will leave. You know what's interesting about everything we learned during the pandemic? And I guess this is not on the level of the financial individual I'm talking about. This is kind of just everybody, is how much stuff can be done remotely. How many things can be done other places? How much significance has to be placed in being in any one location to run any sort of thing whatsoever in reality? And I know there's a lot of ways in which this is an imperfect comparison to what I'm talking about now. But if we notice just how connected our society is, how capable we are of doing things from afar, can't the most well off of us, the true billionaires, the highest of the tax brackets that are being talked about, trying to get 20% minimum of the income that they actually have, be even more capable in those roads? I mean, think about this. Mark Zuckerberg is literally trying to build a digital world you put on glasses and go into and then actually live in. Do you think he's doing that potentially so that he can go buy a house and live in some other country and not pay any taxes at all, and not have to pay a team of people to get him to a point where he's not paying any taxes at all, and just throw on his digital goggles and go to the workplace that's digital and everyone is sitting there living the Matrix style of life? I mean, these are the things that we're talking about. These are the versions of the world that I think we could one day be in. If you try to rip millions or billions of dollars out of the hands of a select few people who are uniquely capable of responding to an action like that, you will likely fail one way or another. Just my opinion, no matter how great the policy is, because of that last kind of trump card they have, that is, we're just going to get out of here. And more importantly than any of that, the other problem, you're spending the money already. You're pitching the budget, you're throwing around the tax increases, and then you immediately start spending all the money before you've seen how those individuals respond to actually having to pay a lot of money back to the government. That seems like a bad way to try to navigate. That's just me, understanding it from a very simplistic standpoint. I will take a break. A lot more coming up. Greg Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
Boys, give me a bowl of chili with plenty of peppers.
One Mexican heartburn. Why don't you mugs grow up?
The Chad Benson Show, where independent, a la carte thinkers have a seat at the table and a voice in the dialogue.
I'll have what she's having.
This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Chad is back tomorrow. The star of the movie Flash that is coming out, a DC film. And also he was in a bunch of other DC movies playing the character The Flash. Ezra Miller was arrested in Hawaii. He was arrested for disorderly conduct. He was arrested for an incident that occurred at a bar. I guess in it, he might have stolen a microphone from a 23-year-old woman that was singing karaoke. And then he may have lunged at a 32-year-old man that was simply playing darts. All of this at 11:30 p.m. At night at a bar in Hawaii. I don't know how you get that mad. Like, I don't know what would have occurred that made this celebrity so upset. I don't know if he saw some of the reactions to the Will Smith thing and thought, how dare they? We're above them. How dare these people do this? I don't know what occurred. He was arrested, though, and charged with offenses of disorderly conduct and harassment. Bail was set at $500, so I'm sure Miller paid that. Law enforcement subsequently released him from their custody. Interesting timing for this story, and there's a mugshot out there of this guy, this famous person who has the movie coming up where he plays a character that I think is supposed to be very kind, very nice, and he's fighting people in a bar at 11:30 at night. Again, in Hawaii. Like, I feel like that's the location where no matter who makes you mad and what goes on, and if anybody wants to fight you in a bar, you just remember, wait a minute, I'm in paradise. Let's just live our lives and not care about whatever the thing is. But I have no idea what happened, other than the fact that he was accused of that stuff and got arrested. I don't know how you get set off and you go that direction, and I do wonder if it has anything to do, and I doubt it does, but I'd hope it did, with everything going on in the world of the Oscars. Speaking of that, actually, I should play this audio before we get out of here. David Letterman reacted to the slappening, the event that took place the other day when Will Smith lost his mind for a little while and then didn't apologize in his acceptance speech and then did online via a post and a written text. That should not be an acceptable apology in today's society. Letterman, pretty funny, though. He just had one thing he wanted everyone to know or take from this incident.
All I can say, and say what you will, read what you will, think what you will about my performance the night I hosted the Academy Awards.
It wasn't great.
But, and here's my point, no one got hit. No one was hit that night that I hosted. That's all I have to say. God bless America. God bless the Academy Awards. Good night.
I love that version of a conversation. No matter what you're thinking and talking about today, the topic is more about me in a silly way, in a fun way, in a way that demonstrates, I think, why Letterman was so great for so long and is still great if you watch any of the stuff he creates now. No one got slapped, and that really is now the only victory we take out of all this. Although, to be honest, I will say this is my last, thing about that topic before we just get done with it forever, maybe. My last thing is that even if it was not a planned publicity stunt, the amount of conversation that has occurred because someone got slapped by someone else means that I guarantee you at every award show from now until next year's Oscars and including at next year's Oscars, there will be a slap every single time. It'll probably always be planned, always be light and a joke, and everyone will pretend it's real to some extent or maybe know it's a joke. But this will be made fun of on the nose every single time, no matter what they're saying right now, no matter how Hollywood and everyone is reacting to how violence is never the answer and it's terrible and awful. And Will himself is saying that he's a kind, loving person who never does stuff like this. His mom's popping up in interviews. They will utilize the potential reach of something like this again and again and again. One last quick one. I like this a lot, so we're going to end on it very quickly. A woman said, she's out of Illinois, that she's been getting random, really tacky shoes delivered to her house for the past year. She doesn't know who's sending them, why she's getting them. She's now got 15 pairs of shoes in her size that I guess she does not like at all. Her name is Simone. This is the most first world problem I've ever seen. I don't care if they're tacky. They're tremendously free. She does think it's really funny, and she thinks it's a pretty interesting gag if someone is pulling it on her on purpose. But just the fact that she's getting at least one pair of shoes a month for the last year for free. Maybe someone signed her up for a service. But I say wear the shoes. I say don't care about the shoes. I was entertained by this story, so that's why I brought it up at all. Some Amazon vendor, maybe in China, she wonders, might be trying to get her to review the shoes. If you go ahead and watch television, the review is not great, but the shoes are free. So really, it's all out there. But this comes up to, I guess, what could potentially be brushing scams, where sites make unsolicited deliveries in order to create fake things. And on that note, quick break. Greg Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show.